My name is Jeff Wida. I have worked for the State Auditor's Office for 26 years. I am a CPA, and I am seeking a Republican endorsement for State Auditor. There has never been a Minnesota State Auditor who has met the professional qualifications to call themselves a certified public accountant, and I have plans on breaking that glass ceiling. Shortly after Rebecca Otto took office, she traveled to all of the outstate locations. I was currently working on the Mankato crew at that time. Each individual had the opportunity to meet with her privately. During my meeting with her, I told her that the office had two problems that had to be addressed: the timeliness of the audit reports and the escalating audit costs. At that time, I shared with her my plan to create a program to ensure timely governmental audits at the lowest price by empowering CPA firms in the auditing of first-class cities and counties through a well-regulated peer review process administered by the State Auditor's Office. Today is September 23rd. In 7 days, we will be crossing the federal single audit deadline. Many of the audits issued after September 30th will be in violation of the Federal Single Audit Act. The federal government is considering moving the federal single audit deadline from September 30th to June 30th. Audits issued after June 30th rapidly become useless to the users, and the federal government realizes this. During the current audit cycle, the audit reports and management letters of the City of St. Paul and the City of Minneapolis were issued on July 23rd and July 28th respectively. Both audits would not meet the future single audit deadline of June 30th. Minnesota statute also requires all cities to report to the State Auditor's Office by June 30th. The State Auditor's Office cannot even meet its own statutory requirements. This form of nonfeasance will not be acceptable in my administration. State Auditor Otto has not addressed the problems of timeliness. In fact, it appears that she is running away from the problem. As a member of the executive branch of government, she must put forward her plan to address this timeliness problem. If she cannot address timeliness, she is certainly not going to be able to address the escalating audit costs that are associated with the unfunded mandate. For more details of the plan, go to jeffforstateauditor.com. Now I'll take any questions.
What's the, is there any kind of consequence to not meeting these deadlines? Or?
For the federal single audit, not at this time, but there's been ever increasing pressure, and I would assume that in the not too distant future there will be consequences.
And why are these deadlines not being met now?
Staffing. All of the single audits and all of the counties that we audit and cities that we audit have a calendar year end, December 31st. If we hired enough staff to get the audits done by June 30th, there would be no work for the employees for the second half of the year. So we have to spread out the jobs to keep the employees working for the entire year. Therefore, we just ignore the federal single audit deadline. When we write up our clients, we write them up on issues of not meeting their state and federal deadlines. It's kind of hypocritical to write up our clients in management letters and then not meet the state and federal guidelines ourselves. It has to come to an end.
And why should the average Minnesotan care about these deadlines and whether they're being met or not, or as long as these audits eventually get done, what difference does it make?
Well, look at it this way. We have governmental auditing. It started back in 1979 with NCGA Statement Number 1. The reason why we started an accrual-based system was because New York almost went bankrupt. Today, more and more entities are under fiscal stress. They need more timely audits for their budgeting cycles, for their truth of taxation hearings, and for all the other reporting that they do. If you're going to just blow off a deadline, then maybe we should have our audits 2-3 years late. What's the purpose of having an audit? What's the purpose of issuing a report? There has to be a deadline, and June 30th is that deadline. Everything seems to be pivoting around June 30th.
So you mentioned working in the Mankato office. Is that where you work now?
No, I'm right now on the Minneapolis crew, but I'm also stationed right now in the St. Paul office at 525 Park Street.
And how is this going to affect your, is this going to be awkward, uncomfortable, running against your boss as you work with her in the coming months?
I have talked to her about this issue, and when it comes right down to it is the elected officials that come into the office, I truly believe do not have the best interest of the municipalities, of the employees, or of the taxpayer. They're only interested in sitting in that office for 4 years so that they can run for another statewide elected office with name recognition. Awkward, I would assume it's going to be awkward. It's never been done before. But the employees have to realize that there's a purpose for our profession. They have to ask themselves, why did they go into the accounting and auditing profession? Why did they choose governmental auditing? What is the purpose of their job? I've known a lot of people who have left the state auditor's office. Everyone who has left has actually been very happy. The employees are going to be given enough time. There's a transition period. I'm not throwing anybody right out on the streets. There's a transition period. I'm going to be working to help get people placed, either with CPA firms or with clients.
So do you think having an auditor who is a CPA brings just a whole different professional standard and approach to the job?
Yes, I do. The current state auditor, like I was talking to you earlier, needs the permission of the deputy state auditor in order to sign an opinion. All of the state auditors before her were in the same situation. I don't need a deputy to sign an opinion. I am a CPA. This person whose deputy has been there for 16 years, he's been there since the Dayton administration. No new ideas have been coming from him. If new ideas were coming, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in right now.
And you said this is comparable to having an attorney general who isn't a lawyer?
I believe it is. The general public out there perceives the state auditor as being a certified public accountant or somebody with an accounting background. But you don't even have to have a degree in accounting. You don't even have to go to college to become the state auditor. I want to try to elevate the profession, elevate the state auditor's office to a professional level as a CPA.
Do you view the office as a partisan office, whether a Republican or Democrat or whoever?
That's the problem. The state auditor's office should not be a partisan office, but it is a partisan office. Let me tell you a story. Shortly after I got this job 26 years ago, I went in and I talked to Arnie Carlson. I asked him, I said, hey, Arnie, don't you think the state auditor should be a CPA? He told me, he said if the CPA ever got a hold of this office and he was governor, he would do everything in his power to eliminate the office. That showed me right then, as I walked out, it was a partisan office. It was partisan under Dayton. It was partisan under every state auditor, some more than others. So yeah, it is a partisan office. It shouldn't be. Governmental audits should not be subjected to the whims of the next elected official.